Today we're going to unpack the absolutely revolutionary thought of Enrique Dussel. He was a philosopher from Latin America whose own life journey, his own story, would end up challenging the very foundations of modern Western philosophy as we know it. So let's just dive right in with a question that Enrique Dussel heard all the time, a question he found both totally common and, frankly, deeply insulting. For a lot of European academics, the very idea of a real, genuine philosophical tradition being born anywhere outside their continent, well, it seemed almost impossible. And for Dussel, this wasn't just some simple question looking for a yes or no answer. No, he saw it as a symptom of a much, much deeper problem, a colonial worldview that had to be completely dismantled. He really dedicated his entire life to forging that new way of thinking, a path that would literally turn the philosophical world on its head. Okay, so our story really starts with a young Dussel growing up in Argentina. And you have to imagine a world where all intellectual and cultural life, it was completely pointed towards Europe. To be an intellectual meant to be European, or, at the very least, to try to be. This quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of the intense pressure he's talking about. For his entire generation, there was this powerful, unspoken rule. If you wanted true knowledge, if you wanted real intellectual validation, there was only one place to get it: Europe. So, he did it. He got on that ship, heading for what he believed was the very center of civilization. But as he sailed away, watching the lights of his own city just disappear, he had absolutely no idea that his most profound, life-changing discoveries wouldn't happen at the center at all, but on the journey there, and out on the absolute edges of the world. And this is where things get really interesting, because this journey to the heart of Western thought would totally unexpectedly reveal this vast, vibrant world that was existing on its margins. His voyage wasn't just about crossing an ocean, it was an intellectual and spiritual awakening. Think about it. On that 24-day boat trip, for the very first time, he sees Afro-American Brazil, the Muslim world of North Africa. He actually wrote that he stumbled upon, discovered forever, the peripheral world. By the time his boat even docked in Madrid, this huge realization had already hit him. He wasn't European. He was latino-americano. And here's the beautiful paradox, right? His whole search for a European identity is the very thing that led him to discover its opposite. It was only when he was surrounded by 200 other Latin Americans in a student residence that he finally got it. He didn't belong to the center. He belonged to the periphery. Now, let's zoom in on the one single experience that changed everything. The year is 1959. Dussel is in Nazareth, and this moment, this is the pivot point for his entire intellectual life. I mean, just picture the scene for a second. He's living in this poor, rough barrack, working 10 hours a day as a carpenter, side by side with Palestinian laborers. It's right here, in the middle of profound poverty, that he has a conversation with a French priest named Paul Gauthier that would completely redefine his life's work. Okay, to really feel the incredible weight of this question, you need the context. Dussel had just been enthusiastically telling this classic story of European triumph, how Pizarro and just a few men conquered the massive Inca Empire. And in response, Gauthier just looks him in the eyes and asks this simple but utterly devastating question. And just like that one question completely shattered his entire Eurocentric view of the world. That very night, he wrote to a friend, "Someday, we will have to write the history of Latin America, from the other side, from below, from the oppressed." His world hadn't just shifted, it had been turned completely upside down, and it would stay that way forever. So, armed with this radical new perspective, Dussel went back to his studies. But now, he had a totally new mission: to build a philosophy that didn't just talk about the people on the margins, but one that actually spoke from the margins. And this comparison right here, this gets to the absolute core of his critique. For Dussel, the modern I wasn't born in some quiet room with the philosopher thinking, like Descartes' "I think, therefore I am." No way. It was forged in the violent act of conquest. I conquer, therefore I am. That act of domination, he argued, is the hidden, bloody foundation of all modern philosophy. So from that foundation, he developed his philosophy of liberation. And at its center is this concept of the other, the person or the people who exist outside the dominant system. We're talking about the poor, the colonized, the woman in a patriarchal society. Their very existence challenges the system's claim to be the whole of reality, the only way of being. And this is what makes his approach to ethics so incredibly radical. It doesn't start with some abstract principle. It starts with a real, visceral cry from another human being. You see, the oppressed don't have the luxury of starting with, I think. Their starting point is, I am hungry, do not kill me. And for Dussel, ethics, true ethics, begins in how we answer that cry. But Dussel's philosophy isn't just about critiquing the last 500 years. It's actually a really bold proposal for a new kind of future, one that moves beyond the logic of conquest and domination for good. He calls this vision transmodernity, and it's not about just throwing modernity out the window. It's about moving beyond its narrow, Eurocentric limits. It's a project where the rich, amazing cultures of Asia, Africa, and Latin America, cultures that were steamrolled by colonialism, can finally enter into a real, symmetrical dialogue, creating what he calls a pluriverse, a world of many worlds, based on mutual respect. So in the end, Dussel's incredible life's work leaves us with this powerful challenge. It really forces us to ask ourselves, after centuries of domination, how do we actually build a world that's based not on conquest, but on mutual recognition? What does that future, a future where many worlds can truly fit, actually look like?